Okay, so this evening is our Ajahn Chah Memorial Day. I was just Luang Liam's just giving the final wrapping up talk on the morning of after all of the circumambulation and the whole night of the Dhamma talks all through the night. So we'll have our Ajahn Chah reflection. I'm going to do 2 readings, and it's going to be a little bit longer this evening than a normal reading, probably about a full hour. But I thought, why not? Why not? And the first is a excerpt from Introduction to a new book, Voices of Siam, which is a variety of translations by Bruce Evans, who was a monk with Ajahn Chah and translated many of the early books that we printed of Ajahn Chah's teachings. These are all sort of fairly small books. Bodhayana was the first one. Anyway, there was a series of 3 that were translated. So he was, and he left the robes shortly before Ajahn Chah's passing. But he is kept in touch, and he lives in Melbourne and goes out to the monastery there all the time. Anyway, this is an excerpt from his introduction to the book, and it's the chapter is called Living with Ajahn Chah. And I'm only picking it up part way through, and then read to the end. Life at Wat Pah Pong was not all chanting and walking meditation. Bruce came in 1975, and so he was actually he came in probably the spring of 1975, and then he stayed at Wat Pah Pong and then ordained as a Anagarika, and then he was an Anagarika the first year of at Wat Nanachat. He was a Anagarika. Life at Wat Pah Pong was not all chanting and walking meditation. Work was also an aspect of practice, and it was held that the attitude you brought to work was an indication of the attitude you brought to meditation. And so shortly after the Rains retreat finished, Luang Por sprung one of his surprises on us. Wat Pah Pong at the time was in the process of building a new boat, an ordination hall. This was an architect-designed structure, and the plan called for it to be situated on a flat-top mound about 2 or 3 meters high. In preparation, truckloads and truckloads of earth had been brought in and dumped in the vicinity of where the boat would go. I guess it should have come as no surprise that we monks and novices were the ones who were going to be moving that earth. There were 3 main jobs in the process. Some of the monks would work with hoes and shovels to heap the earth into little baskets called punki. Another group would carry these baskets up to dump them on the mound. A third group would be on the top of the mound, pounding the earth with pounders to pack it tightly. The work would be done at night, by lantern light, after evening chanting, and sometimes in place of it. All the while we were working, I'd be thinking, we should be meditating, we should be chanting. Here we are up until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, with the lanterns going, working away, shoveling all this dirt. I'd be so agitated that I'd be working like a maniac, thinking, let's get it finished tonight, which of course was not going to happen. One time Luang Por was doing his rounds, and he saw me working frantically and said, "Oh, Burut," because his name was Bruce. Then his nickname became Burut. Burut means man in Thai. It's like a proper name for man, Burut. "Oh, Burut, you work really well." Ajahn Chah had nicknames for a lot of the new monks, because he couldn't pronounce, like Bruce you can't pronounce in Thai. I had to smile. I was not actually working well. I was working like an idiot, but Luang Por's kind words brought me back to reality. Over the years, my knowledge of Thai developed, and I was able to understand more and more of what Luang Por was saying. On one memorable occasion a few years later, I happened to be staying at Wat Pah Pong when one of Luang Por's younger disciples returned to the temple to pay his respects after being away on Tudong for a number of years. This monk had developed a reputation as someone who had reached a high level of realization. Luang Por had been chatting with this monk for some time, and it was on account of this that the bell had been rung and the monks gathered at Luang Por's kuti for a special meeting. Luang Por proceeded to address the monks with a Dhamma talk. I did not take notes at the time, and I don't believe it was recorded. These many years later, I cannot remember much detail, but 2 points stand out in my memory. The first was, Yapramat, don't be heedless. Luang Por elaborated to point out the objective of the bhikkhu life, which is realization, and that the aim of the bhikkhu life is to strive for that release from suffering. The second was Yapragat, which is quite similar. Sounding word, but it's don't make announcements or pronouncements. The meaning is, even if you do have a realization, there is no need to make any announcements about it. This point is supported by rules in the monk's discipline. If a bhikkhu knowingly lies about having superhuman attainments such as enlightenment, deep meditation states, or psychic powers, this is a very serious offense, one of the defeat, parajika offenses, a result of which a bhikkhu automatically ceases to be a bhikkhu. However, even if one does have superhuman attainments, one of the minor rules forbids bhikkhus from sharing this with a layperson. When I reflect on my life with Luang Por, I cannot remember him ever engaging in discussions about attainments or making announcements about his own attainment or that of anyone else. In fact, it seemed that the question was irrelevant. If you know, you know. Why do you need to tell anyone else about it? If one has really experienced something that transcends the world, why would one reduce it to worldly statements? Looking at it on a social level, I've seen a few instances of monks in Thailand who publicize various so-called attainments and as a result amass great followings of dedicated supporters. In some cases, the announcements were based on a misunderstanding on the monk's part, but some were clearly fraudulent, spinning tales to take advantage of a gullible population. When those monks were found out, the damage done to their followers was painful to watch and caused loss of faith on a wide scale. When one thinks about it, a lot of harm comes from obsessing over such matters, and for that reason I am eternally grateful to Luang Por for keeping things simple, keeping things real, and not indulging people's desires to create and attach to spiritual identities. Just do the practice, see it for yourself, and that's enough. If you have the opportunity, help others along the way. It might be argued that if a teacher has a spiritual attainment, announcing it would be helpful to their followers as a means of instilling faith and fervor in the practice. But even here, the benefits are dubious. First, there is the obvious fact that followers are in no position to verify whether the announcement is true or not. They may end up following a teacher into further delusion. Second, it is arguable that having the kind of faith that focuses too much on the teacher is not so healthy. Real faith is the faith that comes from inside, seeing suffering and striving for a way out. This is what keeps us on the true path. If you find a teacher who helps to increase your self-awareness rather than attachment to the teacher, that teacher is worth staying with, and no announcements are required. By the time I became fully fluent in Thai, Luang Por was much less available for conversations. He traveled overseas twice, and not long after returning from his second trip, he began to feel the symptoms of the illness that would eventually render him paralyzed. At this time, I would have loved to have more in-depth discussions with him, but it was not to be. At the time, a little stanza arose in my mind. When the Master was teaching, I had no questions. Now that I'm asking, the Master is silent. Truly, in this world, there are no favors. My most intimate interaction with Luang Por's teaching came in the form of translation. In my 4th reigns as a bhikkhu, I went to stay at the branch monastery run by Ajahn Kun in Pasanno, Ubon Ratchathani. That's the Ajahn Kun who was here this past year. Wat Pa Na Po was a wonderful experience. While it lacked spectacular forests, being regenerated farmland, it was a small community and had decent food, a nice, not too damp climate, simple lodgings, The sala, such as it was, consisted of a concrete floor, corrugated iron roof, and walls made of bamboo lattice work, over which was placed the paper bags from the cement used for the floor, and an impressive teacher. Ajahn Kun was soft-spoken but loved to chat, and the legacies of my staying with him for almost a year were multiple. He liked to experiment and instituted a regime of having all of us read from a Thai text that he had selected for us after the evening chanting. There were only 4 of us staying the reins that year: Ajahn Kun, Luang Ta, an elderly monk who had taken the robes later in life, myself, and a novice, Nin Tawi. Luang Ta read from the Giri Mananda Sutta, and that's a different Giri. This is a work of literature that was done in northern Thailand, much later. It's called a sutta, but it's written like a sutta, but it's more of a literary piece. I read from Advice on Looking Inwards by Upasika Ki Nanayon, and the young Nen Tawi read from another text, the title of which eludes me these many years. Ajahn Kun also had a supply of old tapes of Dhamma talks by Ajahn Chah on 3-inch reels and a reel-to-reel tape recorder on which to play them. The sum of all this was that not only did my knowledge of written and spoken Thai and the Isan dialect develop significantly, but I also gained access to a body of Ajahn Chah's teachings that I began translating and later published as a small booklet entitled A Taste of Freedom. That's what I was trying to remember. I found my meditation becoming very peaceful too. At one stage, it felt that my mind was verging on stillness, but hadn't quite gotten there. I asked Ajahn Kun what I could do to make it absolutely still. He reminded me of one of Luang Por's teachings, which I later found among the tapes that I translated. The objective is not to make the mind absolutely still, that is, without thoughts. Thoughts are just thoughts. The mind is the mind. The two are different things. The thoughts of our mind are like a busy road. You can't go charging onto the road, waving your arms around to try and stop the cars, shouting, "Stop, don't come this way." You'll only get run over. So what do? You get off the road. In the same way, when thoughts arise, don't go picking a fight with them. Just note them and leave them be. Focus on your awareness. It was a teaching that sank in and allowed me to move forward in the practice. In later years, while translating Luang Por's teaching, Still Flowing Water, I realized he had been saying this in different ways on many occasions over the years. And that'll be my second reading. While I did eventually leave the bhikkhu life, there are a number of key teachings for Luang Por that will always be with me. The first is his emphasis on right view. It is a subtle theme, one that can be interpreted in many ways, but to me it is a view that keeps one grounded. One does not practice to gain anything, but to see what is around us more clearly. As Luang Por often said, everything is Dhamma if our mind is Dhamma. This is supported by the standard scriptural definition of right view, which is to see the Four Noble Truths. It is learning to see what is there in front of us with clarity, rather than attaining some projection of what we want to be there. Luang Por succinctly summarized this beautifully with his comparison of the ordinary unenlightened mind as wanting a duck to be a chicken and a chicken to be a duck. Simple and direct are the two words that come to mind when describing Luang Por's teaching. A good example of this simplicity is one of his discussions of the profound Buddhist teaching of dependent origination, Paticcasamuppada. It is a complex and exciting teaching, and many books have been written about it. But Luang Por, in his characteristic simplicity, said, "When you fall from a tree, you don't go counting the branches you pass on your way down. You just fall, and then ouch." The teaching of dependent origination is the teaching that things arise because of causes. You don't necessarily have to see each cause for every effect. The key is having an insight into the principle at work. While simple, this does not mean his teaching was shallow. Some of his simple teachings can be taken on many levels, some of them quite profound. For instance, he once likened the state of enlightenment to a man walking down the street who gets abused by a random stranger. Every time he walks down the street, the stranger abuses him. He feels very uncomfortable about it, and every time he remembers the words of abuse, he feels piqued. But then one day another person tells him, "Oh, that guy, he's crazy. Has been for years. He abuses everyone like that." As soon as he hears this, the man is unburdened of his concern. He realizes that the abusing man is simply acting out of a mental illness. In the same way, as long as we are unenlightened, we keep thinking, "Why am I suffering so much? Why is life so hard?" But with wisdom, we see that in reality, this is just the way things are. Body and mind and all formations are simply this way. They are inherently changing, unsatisfactory, and not self. When you really see this, your problems are gone. Another significant aspect of Luang Por's teaching was his skillful use of conventions. He often expanded on the theme with a play on words in Thai, using the terms samut, convention, and wimut, liberation, pointing out that we must use conventions but also understand them for what they are. In practice, Luang Por ran a tight ship at Wat Pah Pong. The grounds were immaculately kept. The monks were composed and restrained. Everything was done to order. It might seem like a strong attachment to convention, but inwardly Luang Por was light and untroubled by them. He used conventions, but he didn't carry them. At one time, there was a young American woman who had been ordained as a Mae Chi and was living in the Mae Chi enclosure of Wat Pah Pong. As a layperson, she had lived in Laos for some years, and so was able to converse with the other Mae Chi and with Luang Por fairly comfortably. For a Western woman to live with the Mae Chi at Wat Pah Pong was no easy task, and very few have done it. The lifestyle revolved a lot around preparing food for the monks and working in the vegetable garden. A selfless lifestyle for little recognition. The Mae Chi were very much the invisible residents of Wat Pah Pong. This Mae Chi had heard of Luang Por's practice, and she wanted to go and live by herself for a while, perhaps in a cave in a remote forest location, to develop her meditation. She asked for Luang Por's permission, but he said no, pointing out that it would be dangerous for a young woman to live in such a way. She pleaded with him, "But Luang Por, you went Tudong and lived on your own in remote forest locations for years, developing your practice. Why can't I?" Luang Por retorted, "I'm living on my own right now. I always live on my own." It was a teaching that rang true, as Luang Por did indeed always carry himself very lightly, even surrounded by people. In terms of practice, Luang Por did not put great emphasis on meditation technique. He placed more emphasis on having a right attitude. One time I was sitting under his kuti when a young Westerner arrived at Wat Pah Pong and asked if they could study meditation under Luang Por. Luang Por answered rather gruffly, "I don't know about meditation. I only know about torture." The word torture here is from the Thai word toraman. In a monastic context, it is often used in the sense of training or disciplining, in that disciplining the mind is a kind of torture for the defilements. It is interesting to compare this with modern attitudes to meditation, which often seem to be skewed toward looking for a peaceful vibe. Luang Por's answer was an insight into what it really means to dedicate oneself to practice. It is not just sitting with a peaceful mind or even looking for a peaceful mind. Often it is enduring that which is hard to endure. Heat, pain, illness, harsh words, and for a layperson, the complexities and conflicts of living in a competitive world. As a bhikkhu, one could be lying in one's hut, surrounded by miles of jungle, the body burning with malaria, and the nearest hospital, a half-hour walk, then a 20-minute boat ride, then another half-hour car ride away. At times like this, the mind has nowhere to run. When fear of death arises, there is nowhere to find solace other than to accept one's own mortality. This is meditation on another level. When I reflect on the time I spent as a bhikkhu living with the Sangha, one word that springs to mind is authenticity. From my first conversations with Venerable Vajrapanyo to my later interactions with the Western and Thai Sanghas at Wat Pah Pong, Wat Nanachat, and the branch monasteries, I found only genuine people who were striving to deal with the various burdens of delusion with raw honesty. They were not pretending to be noble, or anything at all really, but they had taken on a noble lifestyle with the aim of training out that which is ignoble within them, with varying levels of success. As such, it is an institution that comes as a breath of fresh air for an age where cynicism and negativity have become the norm. As almost 40 years or so have elapsed since those times and dulled my recollections, I cannot share my experiences with Luang Por in great detail. There are many Western bhikkhus and ex-bhikkhus who had far more detailed interactions with Ajahn Chah than I, and would have many more stories to tell. But I offer these reflections as a small window into the experience that was living with him and in gratitude for the debt I owe him. So I'd like to read that Dhamma talk called Still Flowing Water, and I think this was given in the last year that he was, how long was he a monk? I think probably almost 20 years. 15 maybe, something like that. Let's see, he was 75. Maybe somewhere between 15 and 20. He got to know a lot of people, his language got to be very good, and then he sort of got to interact much more with young women there. It's an old story. So this is Still Flowing Water, and it's in the collected teachings of Ajahn Chah. Now please pay attention, not allowing your mind to wander off after other things. Create the feeling that right now you are sitting on a mountain or in a forest somewhere, all by yourself. What do you have sitting here right now? There is body and mind. That's all. Only these two things. All that is contained within this frame sitting here now is called body. The mind is that which is aware and is thinking at this very moment. These two things are also called nama and rupa. Nama refers to that which has no rupa or form. All thoughts and feelings, or the four mental khandhas of feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness, are nama. They are all formless. When the eye sees form, that form is called rupa, while the awareness is called nama. Together, they are called nama and rupa, or simply mind and body. Understand that only body and mind are sitting here in this present moment, but we get these two things confused with each other. If you want peace, you must know the truth of them. The mind in its present state is still untrained. It's dirty, not clear. It's not yet the pure mind. We must train this mind further through the practice of meditation. Some people think that meditation means to sit in some special way, but in actual fact, standing, sitting, walking, and reclining are all vehicles for meditation practice. You can practice at all times. Samadhi literally means the firmly established mind. To develop samadhi, you don't have to go bottling the mind up. Some people try to get peaceful by sitting quietly and having nothing disturb them at all, but that's just like being dead. The practice of samadhi is for developing wisdom and understanding. Samadhi is the firm mind, the one-pointed mind. On which point is it fixed? It's fixed on the point of balance. That's its point. But people practice meditation by trying to silence their minds. They say, I try to sit in meditation, but my mind won't be still for a minute. One instant it flies off one place, the next instant it flies off somewhere else. How can I make it stop and be still? You don't have to make it stop. That's not the point. Where there is movement is where understanding can arise. People complain. It runs off and I pull it back again. Then it goes off again and I pull it back once more. So they just sit there, pulling back and forth like this. They think their minds are running all over the place, but actually it only seems like the mind is running around. For instance, look at this hall here. Oh, it's so big, you say. Actually, it's not big at all. Whether or not it seems big depends on your perception of it. In fact, this hall is just the size it is, neither big nor small. But people run around after their feelings all the time. In order to meditate to find peace, you must understand what peace is. If you don't understand it, you won't be able to find it. For example, suppose today you brought a very expensive pen with you to the monastery. Now suppose that, on your way here, you put the pen in your front pocket, but later you put it in the back pocket. Now, when you search your front pocket, it's not there. You get a fright. You get a fright because of your misunderstanding. You don't see the truth of the matter. Suffering is the result. Whether standing, walking, coming, or going, you can't stop worrying about your lost pen. Your wrong understanding causes you to suffer. Understanding wrongly causes suffering. Such a shame. I only bought that pen a few days ago and now it's lost. But then you remember, oh, of course, when I went to bathe, I put the pen in my back pocket. As soon as you remember this, you feel better again, even without seeing your pen. You see that? You're happy again. You can stop worrying about your pen. You're sure about it now. As you're walking along, you run your hand over your back pocket, and there it is. Your mind was deceiving you all along. The worry comes from your ignorance. Now, seeing the pen, you are beyond doubt. Your worries are calmed. This sort of peace comes from seeing the cause of the problem, samudaya, which is the origination, arising, the cause of suffering. As soon as you remember that the pen is in your back pocket, there is nirodha, the cessation of suffering. So that came up yesterday in the reading, that nirodha, cessation, ending, stopping, disbanding. So you must contemplate in order to find peace. What people usually refer to as peace is simply the calming of the mind, not the calming of the defilements. The defilements are simply being temporarily subdued, just like grass covered over by a rock. In 3 or 4 days, you take the rock off the grass, and in no long time, it grows up again. The grass hadn't really died, it was simply being suppressed. It's the same thing when sitting in meditation. The mind is calmed, but the defilements are not really calmed. Therefore, samadhi is not a sure thing. To find real peace, you must develop wisdom. Samadhi is one kind of peace, like the rock covering the grass. In a few days, you take the rock away and the grass grows up again. This is only a temporary peace. The peace of wisdom is like putting the rock down and not lifting it up, just leaving it where it is. The grass can't possibly grow again. This is real peace. The calming of the defilements, the sure peace which results from wisdom. We speak of wisdom, panya, and samadhi as separate things, but in essence they are one and the same. Wisdom is the dynamic function of samadhi. Samadhi is the passive aspect of wisdom. They arise from the same place, but take different directions. They have different functions, like this mango here. A small green mango eventually grows larger and larger until it is ripe. It is the same mango. The small one, the larger one, and the ripe one are the same mango, but its condition changes. In Dhamma practice, one condition is called samadhi. The later condition is called panya. But in actuality, sila, samadhi, and panya are all the same thing, just like the mango. In any case, in our practice, no matter what aspect you refer to, you must always begin from the mind. Do you know what the mind is? What is the mind like? What is it? Where is it? Nobody knows. All we know is that we want to go over here and over there. We want this and we want that. We feel good and we feel bad. But the mind itself seems impossible to know. What is the mind? The mind doesn't have form. That which receives impressions, both good and bad, we call mind. It's like the owner of a house. The owner stays at home while the visitors come to see him. He is the one who receives the visitors. Who receives sense impressions? What is it that perceives? Who lets go of sense impressions? That is what we call mind. But people can't see it. They think themselves around in circles. What is the mind? What is the brain? Don't confuse the issue like this. What is it that receives impressions? Some impressions it likes, some it doesn't like. Who is that? Is there one who likes and dislikes? Sure there is, but you can't see it. That is what we call mind. In our practice, it isn't necessary to talk of samatha or vipassana. Just call it the practice of Dhamma. That's enough. And conduct this practice from your own mind. What is the mind? The mind is that which receives or is aware of sense impressions. With some sense impressions, there is a reaction of like. With others, the reaction is dislike. The receiver of impressions leads us into happiness and suffering, right and wrong. But it doesn't have any form. We assume it to be a self, but it's really only nama dhamma, or mental phenomena. Does goodness have any form? Does evil? Do happiness and suffering have any form? You can't find them. Are they round or are they square, short or long? Can you see them? These things are nama dhamma. They can't be compared to material things. They are formless, but we know that they do exist. Therefore, it is said to begin the practice by calming the mind. Put awareness into the mind. If the mind is aware, it will be at peace. Some people don't go for awareness. They just want to have peace, a kind of blanking out. So they never learn anything. If we don't have this one who knows, what is there to base our practice on? If there is no long, there is no short. If there is no right, there can be no wrong. People these days study away looking for good and evil, but that which is beyond good and evil, they know nothing of. All they know is the right and the wrong. I'm going to take only what is right. I don't want to know about the wrong. Why should I? If you try to take only what is right, in a short time, it will go wrong again. Right leads to wrong. People keep searching among the right and wrong. They don't try to find that which is neither right nor wrong. They study about good and evil. They search for virtue, but they know nothing of that which is beyond good and evil. They study the long and the short, but that which is neither long nor short, they know nothing of. This knife has a blade, an edge, and a handle. Can you lift only the blade? Can you lift only the edge of the blade, or the handle? The handle, the edge, and the blade are all parts of the same knife. When you pick up the knife, you get all three parts together. In the same way, if you pick up that which is good, the bad must follow. People search for goodness and try to throw away evil, but they don't study that which is neither good nor evil. If you don't study this, there can be no completion. If you pick up goodness, badness follows. If you pick up happiness, suffering follows. The practice of clinging to goodness and rejecting evil is the Dhamma of children. It's like a toy. It's all right, you can take just this much, but if you grab onto goodness, evil will follow. The end of this path is confused. It's not so good. Take a simple example. You have children. Now suppose you want to only love them and never experience hatred. This is the thinking of one who doesn't know human nature. If you hold on to love, hatred will follow. In the same way, people decide to study the Dhamma to develop wisdom, studying good and evil as closely as possible. Now, having known good and evil, what do? They try to cling to the good, and evil follows. They didn't study that which is beyond good and evil. This is what you should study. I'm going to be like this. I'm going to be like that. But they never say, I'm not going to be anything because there really isn't any I. This they don't study. All they want is goodness. If they attain goodness, they lose themselves in it. If things get too good, they'll start to go bad. And so people end up just swinging back and forth like this. In order to calm the mind and become aware of the perceiver of sense impressions, we must observe it. Follow the one who knows. Train the mind until it is pure. How pure should you make it? If it's really pure, the mind should be above both good and evil, above even purity. It's finished. That's when the practice is finished. What people call sitting in meditation is merely a temporary kind of peace. But even in such peace, there are experiences. If an experience arises, there must be someone who knows it, who looks into it, queries it, and examines it. If the mind is simply blank, then that's not so useful. You may see some people who look very restrained and think they are peaceful, but the real peace is not simply the peaceful mind. It's not the peace which says, "May I be happy and never experience any suffering." With this kind of peace, eventually even the attainment of happiness becomes unsatisfying. Suffering results. Only when you make your mind beyond both happiness and suffering will you find true peace. That's the true peace. This is the subject most people never study. They never really see this one. The right way to train the mind is to make it bright, to develop wisdom. Don't think that training the mind is simply sitting quietly. That's the rock covering the grass. People get drunk over it. They think that samadhi is sitting. That's just one of the words for samadhi. But really, if the mind has samadhi, then walking is samadhi, sitting is samadhi. There is samadhi in the sitting posture, in the walking posture, in the standing and reclining postures. It's all practice. Some people complain, I can't meditate, I'm too restless. Whenever I sit down, I think of this and that. I can't do it. I've got too much bad karma. I should use up my bad karma first, then come back and try meditating. Sure, just try it. Try using up your bad karma. This is how people think. Why do they think like this? These so-called hindrances are the things we must study. Whenever we sit, the mind immediately goes running off. We follow it and try to bring it back and observe it once more. Then it goes off again. This is what you're supposed to be studying. Most people refuse to learn their lessons from nature, like a naughty schoolboy who refuses to do his homework. They don't want to see the mind changing. How then are you going to develop wisdom? We have to live with change like this. When we know that the mind is just this way, constantly changing, when we know that this is its nature, we will understand it. We have to know when the mind is thinking good and bad, changing all the time. We have to know these things. If we understand this point, then even while we are thinking, we can be at peace. For example, suppose at home you have a pet monkey. Monkeys don't stay still for long. They like to jump around and grab onto things. That's how monkeys are. Now you come to the monastery and see the monkey here. This monkey doesn't stay still either. It jumps around just the same. But it doesn't bother you, does it? Why doesn't it bother you? Because you've raised a monkey before. You know what they're like. If you know just one monkey, no matter how many provinces you go to, no matter how many monkeys you see, you won't be bothered by them, will you? This is one who understands monkeys. If we understand monkeys, then we don't become a monkey. If you don't understand monkeys, you may become a monkey yourself. Do you understand? When you see it reaching for this and that, you shout, "Hey!" You get angry. That damn monkey. This is one who doesn't know monkeys. One who knows monkeys sees that the monkey at home and the monkey in the monastery are just the same. Why should you get annoyed with them? When you see what monkeys are like, that's enough. You can be at peace. Peace is like this. We must know sensations. Some sensations are pleasant, some are unpleasant, but that's not important. That's just their business. Just like the monkey. All monkeys are the same. We understand sensations as sometimes agreeable, sometimes not. That's just their nature. We should understand them and know how to let them go. Sensations are uncertain. They are transient, imperfect, and ownerless. Everything that we perceive is like this. When eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind receive sensations, we know them, just like knowing the monkey. Then we can be at peace. When sensations arise, know them. Why do you run after them? Sensations are uncertain. One minute they go one way, the next minute another. They exist dependent on change. And all of us here exist dependent on change. The breath goes out, then it must come in. It must have this change. Try only breathing in. Can you do that? Or try just breathing out without taking in another breath. Can you do that? If there was no change like this, how long could you live for? There must be both the in-breath and the out-breath. Sensations are the same. There must be these things. If there were no sensations, you couldn't develop wisdom. If there is no wrong, there can be no right. You must be right before you can see what is wrong. And you must understand the wrong first to be right. This is how things are. For the really earnest student, the more sensations, the better. But most meditators shrink away from sensations. They don't want to deal with them. This is like the naughty schoolboy who won't go to school, won't listen to the teacher. These sensations are teaching us. When we know sensations, then we are practicing Dhamma. The peace within sensations is just like understanding the monkey here. When you understand what monkeys are like, you are no longer troubled by them. The practice of Dhamma is like this. It's not that the Dhamma is very far away. It's right with us. The Dhamma isn't about the angels on high or anything like that. It's simply about us, about what we're doing right now. Observe yourself. Sometimes there is happiness, sometimes suffering, sometimes comfort, sometimes pain, sometimes love, sometimes hate. This is Dhamma. You see it? You should know this Dhamma. You have to read your experiences. You must know sensations before you can let them go. When you see that sensations are impermanent, you'll be untroubled by them. As soon as a sensation arises, just say to yourself, this is not a sure thing. When your mood changes, not sure. You can be at peace with these things, just like seeing the monkey and not being bothered by it. If you know the truth of sensations, that is knowing the Dhamma. You let go of sensations, seeing that invariably they are all uncertain. What we call uncertainty here is the Buddha. The Buddha is the Dhamma. The Dhamma is the characteristic of uncertainty. Whoever sees the uncertainty of things sees the unchanging reality of things. That's what the Dhamma is like, and that is the Buddha. If you see the Dhamma, you see the Buddha. Seeing the Buddha, you see the Dhamma. If you know anicca, uncertainty, you will let go of things and not grasp onto them. You say, hey, don't break my glass. Can you prevent something that is breakable from breaking? If it doesn't break now, it will break later on. If you don't break it, someone else will. If someone else doesn't break it, one of the chickens will. The Buddha says to accept this. He penetrated the truth of these things, seeing that this glass is already broken. Whenever you use this glass, you should reflect that it is already broken. Do you understand this? The Buddha's understanding was like this. He saw the broken glass within the unbroken one. Whenever its time is up, it will break. Develop this kind of understanding. Use the glass, look after it, until when one day it slips out of your hand. Smash. No problem. Why is there no problem? Because you saw its brokenness before it broke. But usually people say, I love this glass so much. May it never break. Later on, the dog breaks it. I'll kill that damn dog. You hate the dog for breaking your glass. If one of your children breaks it, you'll hate them too. Why is this? Because you've dammed yourself up. The water can't flow. You've made a dam without a spillway. The only thing the dam can do is burst, right? When you make a dam, you must make a spillway also. When the water rises up too high, the water can flow off safely. When it's full to the brim, you open your spillway. You have to have a safety valve like this. Impermanence is the safety valve of the noble ones. If you have this safety valve, you will be at peace. Practice constantly, standing, walking, sitting, lying down, using sati to watch over and protect the mind. This is samadhi and wisdom. They're both the same thing, but they have different aspects. If we really see uncertainty clearly, we will see that which is certain. The certainty is that things must inevitably be this way. They cannot be otherwise. Do you understand? Knowing just this much, you can know the Buddha. You can rightly do reverence to him. As long as you don't throw out the Buddha, you won't suffer. As soon as you throw out the Buddha, you will experience suffering. As soon as you throw out the reflections on transience, imperfection, and ownerlessness, you'll have suffering. If you can practice just this much, it's enough. Suffering won't arise. Or if it does arise, you can settle it easily. And it will be a cause for suffering not arising in the future. This is the end of our practice, at the point where suffering doesn't arise. And why doesn't suffering arise? Because we have sorted out the cause of suffering, samudaya. For instance, if this glass were to break, you would experience suffering. We know that this glass will be a cause for suffering, so we get rid of the causes. All dhammas arise because of a cause. They must also cease because of a cause. So, if there is suffering on account of this glass here, we should let go of this cause. If we reflect beforehand that this glass is already broken, even when it isn't, the cause ceases. When there is no longer any cause, that suffering is no longer able to exist. It ceases. This is cessation. You don't have to go beyond this point. Just this much is enough. Contemplate this in your own mind. Basically, you should all have the 5 precepts as a foundation for behavior. It's not necessary to go and study the Tipitaka. Just concentrate on the 5 precepts first. At first you will make mistakes. When you realize it, stop, come back, and establish your precepts again. Maybe you'll go astray and make another mistake. When you realize it, re-establish yourself. Practicing like this, your sati will improve and become more consistent, just like the drops of water falling from a kettle. If we tilt the kettle just a little, the drops fall out slowly. Plop, plop, plop. If we tilt the kettle up a little bit more, the drops become more rapid. Plop, plop, plop. If we tilt the kettle up even further, the plops go away and the water flows into a steady stream. Where do the plops go to? They don't go anywhere. They change into a steady stream of water. We have to talk about the Dhamma like this, using similes, because the Dhamma has no form. Is it square or is it round? You can't say. The only way to talk about it is through similes like this. Don't think that the Dhamma is far away from you. It lies right with you, all around. Take a look. 1 minute you're happy, the next sad, the next angry. It's all Dhamma. Look at it and understand. Whatever it is that causes suffering, you should remedy. If suffering is still there, take another look. You don't yet see clearly. If you could see clearly, you wouldn't suffer, because the cause would no longer be there. If suffering is still there, if you're still having to endure, then you're not yet on the right track. Wherever you get stuck, whenever you're suffering too much, right there you're wrong. Whenever you're so happy you're floating in the clouds, there, wrong again. If you practice like this, you will have sati at all times, in all postures. With sati and sampajanya is clear comprehension, you will know right and wrong, happiness and suffering. Knowing these things, you will know how to deal with them. I teach meditation like this. When it's time to sit in meditation, then sit. That's not wrong. You should practice this also. But meditation is not only sitting. You must allow your mind to fully experience things. Allow them to flow and consider their nature. How should you consider them? See them as transient, imperfect, and ownerless. It's all uncertain. This is so beautiful. I really must have it. That's not a sure thing. I don't like this at all. Tell yourself right there. Not sure. Is this true? Absolutely, no mistake. But just try taking things for real. I'm going to get this thing for sure. You've gone off the track already. Don't do this. No matter how much you like something, you should reflect that it's uncertain. Some food seems so delicious, but still you should reflect that it's not a sure thing. It may seem so sure that it's so delicious, but still you must tell yourself, not sure. If you want to test out whether it's sure or not, try eating your favorite food every day. Every single day, mind you. Eventually you'll complain, this doesn't taste so good anymore. Eventually you'll think, actually I prefer that kind of food. That's not a sure thing either. You must allow things to flow, just like the in and out breaths. There has to be both the in-breath and the out-breath. The breathing depends on change. Everything depends on change like this. These things lie with us, nowhere else. If we no longer doubt, whether sitting, standing, walking, or reclining, we'll be at peace. Samadhi isn't just sitting. Some people sit until they fall into a stupor. They might as well be dead. They can't tell north from south. Don't take it to such an extreme. If you feel sleepy, then walk. Change your posture. Develop wisdom. If you're really tired, have a rest. As soon as you wake up, then continue the practice. Don't let yourself drift into a stupor. You must practice like this. Have reason, wisdom, circumspection. Start the practice with your own mind and body. seeing them as impermanent. Everything else is the same. Keep this in mind when you think the food is so delicious. You must tell yourself, not a sure thing. You have to whack it first. But usually it just whacks you every time, doesn't it? If you don't like anything, you just suffer over it. This is how things whack us. If she likes me, I like her. They whack us again. You never get a punch in. You must see it like this. Whenever you like anything, just say to yourself, this is not a sure thing. You have to go against the grain somewhat in order to really see the Dhamma. Practice in all postures, sitting, standing, walking, lying. You can experience anger in any posture, right? You can be angry while walking, while sitting, while lying down. You can experience desire in any posture. So our practice must extend to all postures, standing, walking, sitting, and lying down. Be consistent. Don't just put on a show. Really do it. While sitting in meditation, some incident might arise. Before it is settled, another one comes racing in. Whenever these things come up, just tell yourself, not sure, not sure. Just whack it before it gets a chance to whack you. Now this is the important point. If you know that all things are impermanent, all your thinking will gradually unwind. When we reflect on the uncertainty of everything that passes, you'll see that all things go the same way. Whenever anything arises, all you need to say is, oh, another one. Have you ever seen flowing water? Have you ever seen still water? If your mind is peaceful, it will be just like still flowing water. Have you ever seen still flowing water? There. You've only ever seen flowing water and still water, haven't you? But you've never seen still flowing water. Right there, right where your thinking cannot take you, even though it's peaceful, you can develop wisdom. Your mind will be like flowing water, and yet it's still. It's almost as if it were still, and yet it's flowing. So I call it still flowing water. Wisdom can arise here. Classic Ajahn Chah Dhamma.